Welcome to Laid Back Law with your favorite lawyers from around the interwebs, discussing the most pressing of topics every Friday at noon Eastern Time.
All right, you could not keep us away. I think everybody had a conflict last week, and I just finally gave up on it. It was like, okay, this isn't happening. But today we are here, hurricane or not. And before we get rolling into the stories, I do want to give my thoughts to everyone in Florida. It was obviously a bad storm. If Waffle House closes, folks, you know it's bad. Mm-hmm. You can't get much worse than that. And
that's the canary in the coal mine there, the Waffle House in Florida.
Yes, it definitely is. And I know a lot
they went full red. That means they're closed because they will stay open. They'll do limited service. They'll do anything. But if they're closed, man.
Yeah. I wonder if Disney was closed because that's another one that would never close.
Yeah,
but,
I'm sure it was. Those of us, I'm in Atlanta, those of us who were watching it churn and get more and more powerful, the whole state of Georgia, I know, had a generalized anxiety disorder for at least 24 hours, and Georgia was hit really, really hard. So, and a lot of Waffle Houses, even up as far as this way, in middle Georgia, even closed down. It's quite something to behold.
Yeah, it really is. And I just hope everybody is okay. And I wanted to, put our thoughts out there. There's a lot of audience who are in those areas. And while we're on Atlanta, though, let's roll into the stories because apparently Atlanta has a fugitive prosecutor. What the hell's going on there, Phil?
Okay, so you're talking about the Nathan Wade subpoena fiasco. Earlier this week, I was made aware of it before it was public because I've got some people that might be in the know. But so they were trying to get Nathan Wade under subpoena in the House Oversight Committee, right, and Jim Jordan's committee. And let's just say there's a combination of things going on. I'm sure Nathan Wade did not want to be served with a subpoena, and I'm honestly not sure how hard the Marshal Service was trying or how effectively they may have been trying to get him served. So I think it's a combination of all that. Needless to say, they couldn't find him. They didn't find him for several days. Normally,
did they try the condo?
What's that? Yeah.
Did they try the condo?
Yeah. Well, normally they don't need to resort to the Marshal Service to serve these things. Normally it's just emailed to somebody or their lawyer, and the lawyer accepts service of it, and then they move on to whatever comes next. In this case, they did have to use the Marshal Service because, he obviously doesn't want to participate in this, and it's obvious if you read the letter that I posted the whole thing on my X feed yesterday, the cover letter that accompanied the subpoena. It goes into great detail about all the links that they have gone to try to get him to voluntarily appear for a deposition, an under oath deposition, including, emails and communications with his lawyer, where they would cancel things and then reschedule them. So it's obvious if you put all this together that he didn't want to accept service. They couldn't or didn't, for whatever reason, find him. And late yesterday or sometime maybe yesterday afternoon, I guess it was when I heard this, he finally presented himself to the marshals and they served him with the subpoena. So it has been served, but you got a lot of folks that are calling this, he's on the run or there's a manhunt. I wouldn't go so far as to categorize it. Now, it's fun to look at the posts and the comments, and there's a lot of funny memes that are out there now. He's a one-man meme factory, I guess, as far as material for memes. But nevertheless, there's going to be, they wanted to do it this week. They were trying to get him to be deposed this week, but because of let's just call it the problems with service of process or service of the subpoena, they're going to have to do it another time.
This is the same case where Fanny, or whatever she calls herself, refused to show up on a subpoena.
So there was some subpoenas for the production of documents to her office, to her and her office, and I think in the cover letter they make reference to those things, and she has not, to my knowledge, complied with the production of any of those documents.
But this is one of those like This is like the king saying, "Well, I can command you to do something, but don't you dare tell me I have to do it."
Well, just this week in we call it the YSL, I call it the Fannie Willis versus Young Thug trial, where they've got a rapper Young Thug on trial for racketeering and stuff. There was a witness that the prosecutors had locked up. They filed an affidavit stating that essentially, and I'm paraphrasing, but because he was reluctant and evasive and accepting a subpoena, that they urged the judge to lock him up to enforce the subpoena. So yeah, it's definitely a double standard. They don't want to answer anything. They being the DA's office, and they don't want to have to answer for anything. And saying, well, this is a partisan political thing. Well, maybe so, but maybe the prosecution is also partisan and political. But they are legitimately looking into whether her office, Fannie Willis's office, has unlawfully misappropriated grant money that was earmarked for other things. And so, whatever you may think about the political part of this, I think we all should agree that Congress has a right to investigate how grantees are using federal grant money and federal tax dollars. So that's a big piece of this.
Sounds fair. Anything else on that story? It seems to be kind of exaggerated, played out, with the Nathan Wade and on there. So let's go to another story that's hot in the news and see if we can answer a question that Nate has had, because I know Nate covered this, and that's the Diddy indictment.
Yeah, stop.
I enjoyed reading that. It was extensive.
Well, here's
quite a few pages.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one of the big questions on it was his baby oil habit and how much there was, all the way to Costco denying that they even sell baby oil. So I guess that didn't help. But this is going around on TikTok and whatever else. Let's see. Why is it not coming up?
Well, just imagine the amount of shade Costco had. Costco's like, yo, we don't even sell baby oil. Like,
that's what I thought. I thought it was just 1,000 pack.
Yeah,
Costco. That's what I said. That was my joke.
And then
apparently they don't want any piece of the joke.
All right. Well, here's the speculation on it, and it's interesting.
Not baby oil. It's GHB. Who has 1,000 bottles of baby oil? If baby oil was such a big part of all these parties and all the things that Diddy did to his victim, some celebrities would have made a joke about it here and there. We would have heard about it. Especially Chrissy Teigen couldn't be paid to shut her mouth. That bitch would have cracked a joke about it, for sure. I just watched this man's TikTok about how it's not a baby oil. It has to be laced with drugs. So as I'm reading the comments, someone said, that's why Jaguar Wright said in one of her interviews at the end, she said, blink twice. Blink Twice was a movie with Channing Tatum. He would spray perfume onto women who would make them forget everything. So then somebody else in the comments said, yeah, and GHB is slippery. So I look up, what is it called on the street? Look at the last one.
Is it?
Liquid ecstasy.
Anyway, I'm not going to say conclusively that that's anything, but it's an interesting theory.
I would go as far as to say it's a conspiracy theory.
Theory, though. that could be.
Does Costco sell bottles of GHB?
There might denied it.
And then who made the bottles too, right? They had to make the bottles. You make baby oil bottles and put the GHB in the actual baby oil.
Maybe there may be some people in the chat that are experts in lubrication, but I feel like if this were GHB or some kind of drug, that I'm sure that would have been mentioned in the indictment. I mean, the feds if they can make it sensational, they're going to put that in the indictment.
Yeah.
What would be the purpose of putting that in the baby oil, though?
Amnesia. I mean, they literally quoted the movie Blink Twice, because remember, it was a billionaire that invited all these women or whatever to a compound. They would use this perfume, but the perfume would cause an amnesia type of effect, which we could call the Bill Cosby method, or other people.
Well, don't you have to ingest it though? I mean,
yeah, no,
I don't know. I'm not sure of the proper applications of GHB. Can you get it through the skin? I don't know.
I will also say too, having that much lubricant, even though it sounds strange in some settings, it's like
really.
Have you guys ever seen the movie Old School?
Yes, that's
they
what I was
had
thinking. They had the KY jelly
wrestling with
wrestling.
yes. So sometimes you may want to use that much thing. See,
You
somebody
might need
even
1,000 bottles to fill up
wrestling.
a
Yeah,
baby
now, I don't
pig.
know if they were wrestling. I don't know what type of wrestling they were doing, but I've seen like, oh, there's a lot of baby. Oh, okay, they're doing it for that. All right.
Can you imagine being the one sitting there filling the tub? It'd be like just sitting there squeezing. How many freaking bottles would it take?
I mean, doesn't it come in 55-gallon drums or something more convenient? I mean,
It does. On
Exactly.
Amazon. You can get a 55-gallon drum of baby oil on Amazon.
All right, and they are saying the LSD can be absorbed through the skin, as an example.
well, LSD, I'm sure, yeah, but okay.
Well, here we go. Oh, God. GHB is most effective when administered rectally. There's the expert here. Thank you, Jim.
There's some interesting comments in the chat.
Oh, yes. There's a reason I brought this up. Hey, we've been gone a week. We've got to come back strong with the crazy ass subject.
Well, in the past, oh, no, I'm not going to tell that joke. Let's move on. Even that's too much for me.
Now, I wanted to. I wanted to cover this last time, but I don't know if you guys have seen this video before. I want to get your thoughts on it, though, especially criminal attorneys or whatever. And
oh yeah, this one pissed me off so hard.
This
one pissed me off so hard with the cop. I want to slap this cop in the face.
All right, well, here we go. I'm
telling you that now that I'm inside your house, I own your house right now. Yes.
Hey everybody, rarely you get a video like this, but had to put this one out today. After
I own your house.
Yeah, that's a no.
Exactly. I'm trying to get to the point of the video.
You can.
Okay, then back the f***
I'm
out
not
of my
gonna back
house.
up.
You do not have a right to be inside my
I'm
house.
not
I
gonna
will
back
talk
up.
to you outside.
Back up and talk to her outside. No.
You don't have a warrant. No, don't talk to them.
You don't have
You do not
to.
have
Let
a
me tell
warrant
you-
to be inside. I will talk to you outside.
You want?
Officer, I will talk
I
to you.
am not going to step outside your house.
You do not have a
We're
warrant
gonna
to be
talk
inside
Trespasser.
my house.
I'm not inside your house.
Yeah.
You're
Trespasser.
inside of my house.
Let me tell you why I'm right here.
Because you walked in.
No, because they opened the door and ran from me.
And
That's
I'm
why.
telling you, I am the
Okay,
adult
and I'm
here.
telling
This
you
is my home.
that now that I'm inside your house, I own your house
No,
right
you
now.
do not.
Yes, I do.
You don't shit,
Yes, I
bro.
do.
You don't shit, bro.
What I
I
mean,
know my rights.
I don't care if you know your rights.
And I'm telling you, my
So-
dog will bite you if I tell her to bite you.
Tell
So
your
I'm
dog to
asking
bite
you to back
Tell
up.
your dog to bite
and
you.
I will talk to you outside.
I'm not going to talk to you
What
outside.
the f*** do you want? What the f*** do you want inside my house?
Oh, I'd be so
Bring your
pissed.
f***ing supervisor
I
to my
want to
home
punch this
now.
officer in the face.
Yeah, bring them all.
We'll turn
You
the
have
music
no
down.
right
Please
to
leave
be
us alone.
inside. No, don't f***ing talk to them.
Please.
What state
You
is
have
this?
no right to be inside because they opened the door. They're minors. I'm the adult here. This is my home.
She
Get the
said she's the adult.
She's not the. Don't do that. You're in my. I didn't touch you, her. Did I touch you?
I want to punch that officer in the face.
All right, so ultimately she was arrested and taken away. Now,
wrong.
help
Wrong.
me
Wrong.
understand.
Obstructing,
She's getting some
obstructing.
money. She's getting
Bullshit.
some money. She's gonna be
What
getting paid,
what state
man.
is that in?
Colorado, I believe.
Can you use physical force against an officer when he's in uniform to remove it? Like you could. Can you remove a trespasser from your property in Colorado like that?
I don't know
Push him
Colorado.
out the door.
I don't know of any jurisdiction where you can't use non-lethal force to remove a trespasser.
But they're
Well, I
in
can
your
tell you-
home, right? That's different than like on your property. Like if you had some strange person walking in through your front door like that, that's not in uniform, not saying they're a cop or anything, I think you'd be justified in using some sort of physical force to remove them. And if you did that against a cop, is that legal? That was my thought.
We've got a law on the books.
I think it's legal.
in Georgia.
I do. I want it to be illegal for sure.
I want it to be very legal. Look, if this was just a random person, as far as I'm concerned, you can use non-lethal force. It's the bouncer at the club, right? The bouncer at the club tells you to leave. It's like, I'm not going to leave. It's like, okay, I'm going to use minimal force to eject you. You can do that. That's legal, right? You're on my property. I've told you to leave. You're trespassing. I'm now going to affect that trespass. I can do that legally. It's my home. My rights at the home are more than a bouncer at a club. My home is my sacred ground. This officer has put his foot inside and is refusing to leave. He is criminally trespassing. The cop deserves to be charged.
Yeah,
that's my thought. But there's a lot of
Georgia.
laws in a lot of states that say even if the officer is illegally on your premises in your home, you can't forcibly remove them if they're in uniform and acting under the color of law bullshit.
Well,
Yeah,
in
the
Georgia,
court of
we've got a
law.
law on the books here in Georgia that says you can legally use reasonable force to resist an unlawful arrest. And so
Wow.
it's
Yeah.
dangerous to try to, are you really gonna put all your eggs in that basket and roll the dice? I think as a practical matter, there are better ways than getting into a physical confrontation with the officer, but the officer was clearly in the wrong here, and I think she was well within her rights to try to eject him.
What about the question that did come up in the chat? If an officer is in pursuit,
Hot pursuit.
Well, that's a whole different situation.
Yeah, that's
in
what
hot pursuit of a fleeing felon.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
is he in pursuit of a fleeing felon? Then if not, then go away.
Which brings me, what was the reason for the officer even being there?
something about the daughter. I get the idea that the daughter was messing around or something and ran into the house. And
was she like jaywalking across the street or something?
I have no idea what she was doing. I mean, she could have been causing trouble. Whatever. I have no idea. But I did want to ask that question because.
But from what it sounded like he was saying is that he knocked on the door.
Yeah.
Some kids opened the door. They
Yeah.
ran into the house, and then that's why he went into the house. So even if that's the case, that doesn't give you exigent circumstances.
No.
No.
He's not in the hot pursuit. It's just
presumably the child's not committing a felony. Presumably the child's. Now, the one I would say is if the child was, say, allegedly dealing narcotics on the road, and therefore then there would be a risk of the evidence being destroyed. You can probably get in without evidence. That's the one thing.
You're stretching that.
I'm trying to at least give some benefit of the doubt.
Like she was selling drugs 2 weeks ago and they destroyed in the house. Like,
Exigent.
Yeah.
So exigent.
Get to you.
Question.
Now, my fellow lawyers can correct me on my Fourth Amendment law because it's been a while, but correct me if I'm wrong. If any adult gives permission, the police can enter. But if any other adult who has equal rights refuses, the refusal is the thing that carries.
You're correct.
So
in the situation where you have co-tenants and both are present at the time of the search, both have to consent to the search.
And consent can be revoked.
So even
too.
assuming the kids were adults, and even assuming the kids gave permission, the fact that the adult is there saying, I refuse permission, in the event of I consent, I refuse wins.
Right.
Question. I want to play out a scenario so I really do understand this. What if, let's say, the kid threw a rock at a neighbor window? It's outside, right? The cop sees it. The cop's chasing the kid. The kid runs inside the house, closes the door, and then the cop beats on the door, and another kid, like a sibling, opens the door. What would that scenario play out to be?
The cop would have to sit outside the door because that doesn't give you the right to go into the house. You still need
the cop will, practically speaking, bully the kid into giving him permission to come into the house.
But the cop
that's what's going to happen.
But the cop wouldn't have legal permission to get inside.
Can we talk about the legal ownership of the home once the cop sets foot in it?
Apparently, that means the cop owns the home,
Lord.
which makes me ask some further questions. Does that mean that I can now file with the cops for them to pay for my property taxes?
Yeah,
because they own the house. Is
I don't know.
how that works?
He was a dumb cop.
Well,
are they paying for my
so.
insurance? Do I have to declare them as co-tenants on my insurance? Do I have to call my insurance company?
I mean, if they want to own the house, they can pay the mortgage.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what other things are they assuming in this this interesting acquisition of property? Is that eminent domain? Do I have to go through a seizure in a Fifth Amendment context?
Well, I can tell you as a former cop that, when that cop's supervisor, he was a deputy sheriff, so maybe when the sheriff he or she takes a look at this, obviously they're going to get a lot of bad press, bad media. It was an unlawful arrest, so the arrest is going to have to get tossed out. They're going to have to take some kind of disciplinary action against the officer. Quite frankly, I think it would be a firing offense to behave in that kind of manner. It's entirely unprofessional, and if I were the sheriff, it would not be the kind of conduct or public sort of behavior that I would tolerate for one instant from anybody that worked for me.
Yeah.
Well, it harms the police
I want the cop
reputation.
charged with trespass. He was given active notice that he had to leave, and he refused to leave. No one charged with trespass.
I think he should be charged.
Especially
after the
there
arrest.
are rules, man.
Because I know they. Go ahead.
And what about kidnapping? Technically,
Nah.
if it's a false arrest, He literally is taking her from her property.
False arrest is good, but it's going to be hard.
Wait. Has the Third Amendment ever been applied to states?
Quartering soldiers, huh?
And everybody's quickly looking up Third Amendment Google search.
But then they're not. Oh, you got to tell them quartering soldiers.
There have been a few cases where there have been like cops trying to like seize someone's home. A couple times, someone's tried to break on a Third Amendment argument. So I do appreciate the Third Amendment Legal Society would love to read your paper, I'm sure.
Anyway, I'm just saying that if somebody else did that, if one of us went in that house and extracted that woman, would that not be kidnapping?
Yeah, we'd be.
So if you're arrested under false pretenses, I don't know that I'm stretching the reason too much.
Oh no, I'm not. Could you make an argument? Yes, but if your police officer is acting under the color of law, and you can make an argument,
but he's breaking the law.
Well, they got
even though
faith exception too on that.
It's going to be almost impossible for you to be able to get them on a kidnapping charge. False arrest, 1983 claim, violating the rights. You know,
how about civilly?
You got it.
Can I get him civilly?
I think you got him up the wazoo civilly. You got a false arrest there, obviously. You got a false search essentially because somebody steps in the house and takes it's a fake search. You got no probable cause.
Yeah, it's illegal.
I think you got him.
As long as there's been a previous case in this particular federal district where the trespassing occurred by placing both feet within the door, not merely a single foot.
Andrea has a point.
Oh, she's hitting us with the what's it called again?
Clearly established.
Clearly established, right?
Yeah. All good 1983 claims
clearly
established.
Yeah.
But it is the home, so you got that going for you.
And don't forget, Scalia was big on the curtilage too. Remember the curtilage,
Okay, I'm going to shift to Andrea. I'm sure that there's something going on with Kohberger. There seems to always be, but you seem to be involved in a case recently in Los Angeles yourself. Something was going on. Can you share what that was all about? Because it seemed like it might be a little spicy.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I got pulled into some drama. Well, so I was on vacation for the last several weeks. I took a road trip down to Los Angeles. My cousin lives down there. And so I've been wanting to do this for years, finally had the chance to do it, drive down the whole Pacific Coast Highway, hang out in LA for a while, and then drove the mountain route back. So it was this awesome vacation, but it timed out just perfect so that when I was down in Los Angeles, I was there while a court hearing was being held in the divorce of Alice Evans and Ioan Gruffudd. This is a case that I've been following for quite some time. If you're not familiar with these players, which is understandable because they're not really that high profile, but Ioan Gruffudd is the better known of the two. He's a Welsh actor. He played Horatio Hornblower. He played Mr. Fantastic in the Fantastic Five. And he is going through this very nasty divorce with his ex-wife, Alice Evans. She's got a DVRO against her because she just can't stop engaging in all of this abusive behavior. And there's been all of this controversy. She's alleged that, he's left her and the children destitute. He's not supporting them. But then he's filed, information from a financial accountant that's got, hundreds of thousands of dollars in her account. He's overpaid her, massive amounts of support. So basically, she's just been engaged in about a 4-year-long smear campaign now against him for having dared to leave her. And so a court hearing was going on, and I decided I was in the area. I'm going to go ahead and go to the hearing and watch what's happening. Well, I've made some videos about this, and Alice apparently recognized me and had a little freak out meltdown right there in the courtroom. And then, proceeded to kind of melt down on her social media, on her Instagram for, a week or so after that. So, I got name dropped in the Daily Mail over all of this because,
Did you get some views out of it?
Doodling with the ex-husband in the courtroom while sitting there minding my business, live tweeting what's happening. What happened is she jumped up from her side of the courtroom and ran over with her camera out, with her phone out to take a picture. Not clear if it was me that she was trying to photograph or the ex-husband Ioan, who's, sitting in the row ahead of me and a little over to the side. But it instantly, of course, caught the attention of the bailiff who, hauls her out of the courtroom, makes her delete everything. And, Yeah, it was quite dramatic.
Did you get views?
I did get views. All kinds of new subscribers views. I mean,
Who is this woman?
all kinds of comments about, oh, hey, I just found you because I saw you in the Daily Mail.
You need to make that part of your intro now.
I guess triggering psychos from East Coast to West.
Wow. That is insane. Oh, well, how about Kohberger? Anything of note? Just the same old.
Well, so yeah, Bryan got his motion to change venue granted about 3 weeks ago while I was gone. This actually shocked me. I really did not expect that ruling to be made. I really thought Judge was going to keep it in Latah County. But it turns out that apparently the logistics of what that was going to look like, given just the interest and all of the implications of a trial of this magnitude in that small of a community, had a lot of influence with the judge. It featured quite a bit in his opinion, what some of the problems were going to be with Latah County: not enough security, not enough clerks, the courthouse configuration is bad. By the way, we just learned that the door to the jury room, between the jury room and the courtroom, it's not soundproof. They should fix that. I don't know if we should be moving trials out of that jurisdiction. Hello, this is going to affect a lot of people besides Bryan Kohberger. But anyway, so they moved it to Boise. We have a new judge. They just had a status conference yesterday in front of the new judge. So we got our first look at him, Judge Stephen Hippler, and he comes across as pretty even-keeled, was my impression, but also that he's the boss in the room. He's going to be, I think, perhaps a little bit more of a take charge type of judge than Judge was. And they brought up the possibility of resetting the trial date. I think this was always anticipated once. I mean, we knew that the change of venue was on the table, and that if it's going to get moved, what works for Latah County is maybe not going to work for Ada. So it wasn't super shocking, but no final decision was made. The judge was looking at either accelerating it up into May to start in May, or to push it back until it doesn't start in September, mainly because he didn't want the entire summer being taken up, by people, having to do jury duty. So we learned that a defense expert has died and has had to be replaced. Apparently one of the defense mitigation experts. And there has been 398 gigabytes of new discovery produced in the last several weeks. So basically the, situation is the defense would like the later date. The state wants the earlier one, but we don't have a final decision yet. I expect we'll probably get an order within the next several days that lets us know.
Can I ask a question, Andrea?
Yeah.
So normally when I see changes of venue, basically the whole circus packs up the tent and goes on the road, and that would include the judge and everything. But in this case, obviously they've changed the judge. Is that something that's unique to that to that state? The jury, what was the reason that we don't have the same judge even though venue was changed?
Yeah, so it's part of the Idaho rules that when they change venue, it's essentially at the discretion of the original judge, whether they want to continue with the case or not. And so there's different kind of roads they can send the change of venue down depending on whether they choose to stay with the case or not. I had always suspected that Judge, if he did change venue, was not going to stay with the case because he's the chief administrative judge for the 2nd District in Idaho. So he's got, obviously more going on. He's the only judge in that particular courthouse, but he's also running, the administrative stuff for the whole circuit. So it just seemed not very feasible for him to have to drop all that for 3 months or whatever.
I was going to say, well, it'd be a long trial, so you'd have to be away for extended time.
Did you feel like the judge was sort of underappreciating the magnitude of this case? That's the sense that I got.
Judge or the new judge?
No, the new judge.
The new judge? I don't know. I don't know that I got that impression. I think it's a little hard to say just based on it being kind of a nominal ministerial type of hearing so far. I was a little surprised. He started off the hearing with a little bit of a lecture, which he said was going to be his only lecture. We will see if that promise holds. But basically telling the attorneys, you know, I expect everybody to get along. I expect no name calling and things like that. To me, it just seemed pretty out of place because that really hasn't been an issue in this case at all. I mean, certainly there's been arguments over issues, but no indication really of personal animus. And frankly, by many accounts, they seem to be able to get along and work together pretty well. There's been all kinds of stipulations and concessions and things like that that have not required litigation. So I think he may be, you might be onto something that he may not fully have the pulse of the case yet.
Yeah.
But in terms
really
of
when he was talking,
I think, you know, he knows and is prepared for it.
Sure. I was just, when he was talking about moving the case up to May, and he was trying to inquire from defense counsel as to why that would not be feasible. And she's like, well, I can't really say why, but Judge, trust me, it's not. And he's like, well, but why? You know, and really made her try to jump through hoops to convince him that May was not feasible. That's kind of what I was getting at. I'm like, does he appreciate the extent of evidence and what's been going on with this case?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't mind him pushing for a reason.
Part of it is I think, you know, his personal background as an attorney, his professional background is not in criminal. He's a civil attorney who ended up on the bench. Now, granted, he's been, you know, handling criminal cases on the bench for at least a decade. But it's one of those situations where, yeah, when you haven't done the job, it may be a little bit difficult to appreciate exactly what all of it entails. Ann Taylor mentioned in court yesterday, the defense has 25 experts and investigators on her team. That made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Okay. I hate managing like 2 experts because it's just a nightmare. Expert management is herding cats. You got to find the right one. You got to follow up with them. They're busy. You got to coordinate. You got to get their schedule. You got to make sure everybody's on the same page. It's just, it can be like a high level kindergarten type of process. I have a hard time imagining what that's like with 25 on board. So if I can't imagine it as a criminal defense attorney, I'm not sure that the judge is going to really appreciate what's involved in putting on a defense like this.
All right.
Yeah, but that's a perfectly lucid answer. And then my only question is, then why couldn't the team just give that answer to the judge when he says, well, why isn't it feasible? Why not just simply say that? I mean, it doesn't break privilege. It just simply says, look, this is a complex case. I've got all these witnesses. We got to coordinate it. This is going to take time and we need this much time. So I don't mind him like pushing for an answer about why can't we do it, even if the answer seems somewhat obvious.
Yeah, well, he essentially did. I mean, that is essentially how the hearing went down. The issue is that he ultimately wanted more specifics about who the expert was, you know, what their role was in the case, and the realistic, whether it was going to be realistic for the new person to get up to speed in time for the current deadline for the disclosure of experts and their information and stuff like that. So they agreed to everyone agreed they would basically have an ex parte conversation off the record after the hearing was concluded, so that she could disclose that stuff to the court. But it obviously presents issues with work product privilege and stuff like that for her to be discussing that in open court.
Sure.
Isn't a case like that so large that even a normal criminal court would be overwhelmed by it?
I mean, I think about my local courthouse here where I live, and would they be able to handle something like this? I don't see it. I don't see it. I mean, having been to that Latah County courthouse, and I mean, I understand Judge's concerns with just, yes, it would be completely overwhelmed. There's not even enough room to, you know, have people spill out onto the sidewalk that wouldn't be able to get in court. Everything going on in that building would be disrupted while the trial was going on. It's just so many logistical problems.
That makes sense. All right. Well, speaking
is there an
of
indication at this time on the length of trial itself once we get there?
They were talking in the ballpark of about 10 weeks. The state is estimated 6, and the defense is estimated 4.
And then 4 weeks for punishment.
That's just for, yeah, and then about 4 weeks for the punishment phase.
So we know what Andrea will be doing for 14 weeks in maybe September.
Yes, I will be in Boise, which actually works out fine for me because I got family over there, so I got a place to stay and everything.
If they got a spare room, let me know.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, listen, hey guys, I'm gonna jump in real quick. I'm gonna have to punch out. I got a couple other things going on before I get ready for my live stream later today. But I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. I've loved watching the comments in the chat. You got a great chat going here. So have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.
Always good to see you, Phil.
Take care.
Good to see you. All right. Speaking of small towns with a huge problem, Nate, what's up with our super mayor?
Tiffany Henyard.
Oh boy. That was a nut job.
The second most experienced mayor in the U.S. right now.
Curtis
my question is, will
too.
she make it to the end of her term before she's arrested?
Well, I don't know how they got Adams before they got her, because hers is just like blatant, because but Adams, they got him maybe because he came out against immigration, but also Henyard came out against immigration too. She's like, I don't want these crazy migrants here. What do you think I am, a Democrat? Which she is. So I don't know. But the update on Henyard is that so he went and started appointing people to, so in Dalton, the rules there are the same as they are with the federal at the federal level, in which the president appoints or the chief executive appoints, and the legislature consents to the appointment. So Henyard started appointing people without the consent. But Dalton also has the reverse, in which if you remove someone, it also has to be with consent of the board. So she's firing people without consent of the board, and she's hiring people without the consent of the board. So a judge just now issued a temporary restraining order saying that she can't fire or hire anybody without consent of the board. That if she does, she's going to be held in contempt and can go to jail. And one of the people that she actually hired to run the village of Dalton was fired from a job. Well, he was arrested like 8 times, and he was fired from his job for grooming minors and calling a 15-year-old girl his girlfriend. So he was a teacher, and allegedly threatened to beat up her boyfriend.
Isn't that the second person who had that kind of a problem in the past?
This is the same person.
Okay.
So, yeah.
He served time, didn't he?
I think he did serve some time because he was an elected official before, and he needed some gas. So he went to a gas station, pulled out a badge, demanded gas, drove away, and then they arrested
As one does.
A police officer. Yeah, so that's the person she's got running. Well, she wanted to run the town.
That sounds like stealing.
That sounds like what about her police chief, who is under indictment by the
police? The police chief is under federal indictment. He got 9 charges. Then the old village administrator, he got caught with a bankruptcy charge. So they're obviously going from the bottom up, and indicting all these the lower level people and getting in a flip. So recently, for instance, Henyard spent $100,000 on a party, but there was nobody showed up, and she paid for her favorite music artist to come and party. So she spent
Didn't it wind up being like $1,200 per person who showed up or something?
Yeah. And the stars that showed up, there was one guy got $20,000 for a half hour's worth of work, and another one got $30,000 for a half hour, which is good if you can get it, but it's all taxpayer money. And the last thing was that so they stopped her big bingo. So I don't know if anybody who works for states and local governments, after you have petty cash, and petty cash is usually anything under maybe $200 or something like that, where you can use cash to buy stuff and you don't have to record it. But here, Tiffany Henyard, because she's trying to buy votes, she had what's known as big bingo. So she was giving out prizes like thousands of dollars, $2,000-$3,000. So the state recently said, well, hold on, if you're giving people thousands of dollars worth of prizes, they have to fill out 1099 forms because this is taxpayer money. So we have to know. So she says that she doesn't want to fill out the forms, and that since they're giving them back their own money, there should be an exemption. So that's actually happening. So it's all going to hell now.
Wait, she says the bingo is her giving back their own money.
Yeah, that they're giving back the people their own money in bingo. So it should be exempt from the 1099.
Oh my God! What about the code inspector that this person's saying served a lengthy prison sentence?
That's true. Yes. So that was and she did have a code inspector. So when she first became mayor, she hired a guy to go into people's houses and inspect, their houses. But that guy was on the sex offender registry for blank of a young girl, and he did like 20 years in prison for it.
And that's who you want inspecting everyone's house, folks.
Yes. He had like people's houses, and gave him a badge. And the reason why he actually got fired was not because she hired him, was because he didn't. Wherever he goes to work, he has to register as a blank offender, and he didn't register as a blank offender, so they arrested him for not registering. So just imagine a cop arresting another cop for not registering as a blank offender. But yeah, that happened.
Right.
Yeah,
wow. All right, so let's go on to Eric Adams, unless you guys want more on him.
There's actually one other case that I wanted to, because I'm assuming that you guys haven't heard about it. Here in Texas, they just arrested the judge for impersonating Trump supporters online and making racist attacks.
Wait, the judge did it too, or just his employees?
No. The judge was just arrested and indicted.
Ooh.
Yeah, I have.
Okay, back up and tell us the whole story.
Please. All right. So, in Texas, there was a guy running for commissioner, and he was a White House Democrat. So he started running for commissioner, and he was running in a place where the guy who was there was like 27 years, Ruby Red Republican, Trump supporter. So he went on his computer and said, "Hey, I'm going to build up this account of a white guy. And I'm going to name this white guy Antonio Scallywag." So Antonio Scallywag, this is true.
Scallywag.
It's so funny.
So Antonio Scallywag.
He's a pirate.
Antonio Scallywag goes on to Facebook and starts saying things like, "You guys are monkey worshipers. You're not real Americans, blah, 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 blah," against this guy, the guy who's running for things. So, because he happened to be Indian. So the Republican was like, "Yo, who's this guy Antonio Scallywag? How come I'm seeing him everywhere? You know what? Let's investigate who this guy is." So he went to the DA's office and like, "Yeah, this guy's harassing people online with this hate speech. Let's investigate him." So the first thing the DA's office did was send subpoenas to Google and said, "Hey, can you give us the background in this account?" Come to find out, the person, Patel, who this guy Scallywag was targeting with these racist accounts, was the one who was actually made the account. And the reason why they knew it is because his credit card information, phone number, matter of fact, the recovery account for the account, with the recovery email, was Patel's own email. Like it was his.
So he's trolling himself.
Yes. Well, he wasn't trolling himself. He was committing like this. They call it election interference, because he was faking like this guy was making racist attacks against him, but it's really himself. So he got arrested for it. The Texas Rangers then, subpoenas and checking it out. So then they say, "Well, hold on. He's talking to the sitting judge right now. So, so about this." Come to find out, the sitting judge was ordering Patel to do this. And they went back and they saw Antonio Scallywag did the same thing to this judge's campaign, where they believe the judge actually was acting as Antonio Scallywag, making racist hate crimes against himself as Antonio Scallywag. So here is the news clip about the judge this morning being arrested for making a fake hate crime against himself, impersonating.
That means there's a new slot open for a judge, right? So how do I apply for that? That's what I want to know right now.
Well, I think you got to move. Well, no, you got to move to Fort Bend County.
That's one county over. I'm comfortable with that. That's fine.
Here it is.
Tonight, Fort Bend County Judge K.P. George was booked into jail just after 7 p.m. This is his mugshot. George is posting fake racist messages to make it appear he was the target of hate during his 2022 reelection. Matt Doherty's at the Fort Bend County Jail tonight. Matt, there are calls for George to resign.
Yeah, the county judge was booked here and bonded out a short time later. Like you said, there are calls for him to resign tonight. Some are saying this is a case of fake racism.
I had no clue who Antonio Scallywag is. No one knows who Antonio Scallywag was.
He's Pierre Delecto's brother.
Precinct 3 Commissioner Andy Myers says he wanted to learn the true identity of the person making hateful and racist posts on his campaign's Facebook page. The posts, which are too offensive to repeat, were directed at South Asians, calling them terrorists, mocking the Hindu religion, and more. Commissioner Myers took the post to the district attorney, who started investigating.
My objective was to shut it down and stop it. I was shocked whenever they informed me that that was my opponent, Terrell Patel.
Patel is the
He did
Democratic
stop it.
nominee for Fort Bend County's Precinct 3 commissioner seat. He was arrested following a lengthy investigation by the Texas Rangers and is charged with online impersonation and misrepresentation of identity. Prior to announcing his run for county commissioner, Patel was the chief of staff for Fort Bend County Judge KP George. Today, prosecutors say the county judge also used the fake profile back in 2022 during his campaign against Republican Trevor Nels.
The allegations are that he and Terrell Patel coordinated the racist messages that were basically posted during his campaign to essentially make KP George a victim for the purposes of obviously winning a political race. They did this for their personal gain, which I think is reprehensible.
Prosecutors say the county judge posed as Antonio Scallywag to injure a candidate or affect the outcome of an election. On Monday, before the county judge was indicted, he emailed a statement saying his attorney had told him not to comment or answer any specific questions about the investigation. The county judge also said that he trusts his name will be cleared and that he intended to continue to serve the residents of Fort Bend County.
So
Sounds like it worked for the judge. So he said to the other guy, hey, this trick worked for me. Let's go ahead and do that.
But how lazy are you that you couldn't come up with a new name? You do the same
Scallywag is
it's a good name. It's a funny name. It's like Antonio Scallywag is saying this racist stuff about me.
Clear the Scallywag name now. The good name Scallywag.
But it's gotten even deeper because you guys don't even know the back. Like there's even more. So Patel was so crazy about it that so he goes to court. He gets arraigned. He then goes on is impersonating the judge who's arraigning him on Facebook.
What?
Patel is just sick with it. So so they found that he was impersonating the judge who arraigned him. And then they got him a new judge. So so this story is like bonkers. I don't know what the hell's going on in Fort Bend, but so now we have two elected officials essentially committing Jesse Smollett type hate crimes against himself. Antonio Scallywag.
It's amazing.
Hate crime hoax. All right. I'm going to bring up a case I don't talk about on here much at all, but there has been a development in it. And, a lot of the chat will probably want to know. Apparently, there's been a development with the Nick Rekieta case. And I don't want to go into graphic detail or anything else, but Kurt, Nate, I think you guys both covered it. I don't know if you have, Dave. What's going on with Nick Rekieta, his case, and what's the status?
Nate and I were right. But long story short, okay, Nick Rekieta was arrested and charged with possession of cocaine. Most recently, he filed an omnibus to have his case dismissed on the basis that the warrant was invalid.
What's an omnibus?
It's a all-purpose motion.
Okay.
So it's a motion for all purposes. So it's multiple different things. Anyway, so he filed a motion to dismiss, essentially, on the basis that the cop lied and asked for what's called a Franks hearing to determine that. And the judge determined
did the cop lie about?
That he didn't actually, according to Nick, that the cop didn't actually view the original video because he viewed it somewhere else and it had a watermark on it, and that makes it different.
Well, there's also 4 seconds difference too in the length of the video.
No, there wasn't. It wasn't. It was exactly the same.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was exactly the same.
Well, sometimes when they wrote it, they didn't quote the full number because they just said 4 hours and 4 minutes instead of the additional. So depending on how they wrote it, but it was the same video. It doesn't matter. And that's exactly what the judge says. It was the same video. Didn't matter. And then the judge also said that he failed to preserve the issue of the sufficiency of the probable cause, and that issue is gone. So there's no more basis to oppose the warrant. So that's gone, which means that we're going to trial. And it also means he's going to get convicted because, as I've said before, this is a simple possession case. It's a 2-witness case. Witness number 1 is the cop. Hey, cop, did you go there? I surely did. What'd you find? I found some drugs. Did you wear a body cam? Yep, I did. Let's roll that footage. Is this you with your hand with the drugs in your hand? Surely is. Thanks, cop. No further questions. Second witness, the lab tech. Hey, lab tech, did you test the stuff? I sure did. What was it? Drugs? Great. No further questions, right? And anything beyond that is bonus. And so since they have no basis to, like, we're going to trial. So it's the end of the game. Game over, man. Game over.
Yeah, he
So-
needs to take a plea. Like I said from the beginning. Though I will say this. I don't fault him for filing a motion. Everyone wants to tease him about filing a motion, or the motion was dumb and the judge was mocking him for filing such a thing. As a criminal defense attorney, what you do is you take the case and you start poking as many holes as you can into it and see where those holes lead. And if they don't lead anywhere, then you start talking plea. But you at least got to try to poke some holes so that you can get your client the best deal possible.
Yeah, because if you don't make the argument, it's automatically going to be a no, right? So you have to at least make, as long as it's not frivolous. And I don't think it was borderline. It was borderline. We're getting close to being frivolous, but it wasn't frivolous. But I think
the video thing was borderline frivolous. That I thought was really ridiculous.
Yes, because he was saying the only difference with the video was the watermark. Yeah. So just so everybody understands, with a Frank's hearing, you have to show that if the cop lied, it was material. It would have changed the outcome of the warrant. The judge would have said, "I'm not going to issue that search warrant because this was so important to whether the warrant was issue or not." So Nick's argument essentially was that his original video and the other video that the cop watched were different, and the only difference was that there was a watermark on the video the cop used, and that watermark materially changed the video, but it didn't. It was you know how YouTube puts a little watermark on the bottom right hand side of the video. That's what it is. Matter of fact, here is Rekieta. And now somebody put this together, which I think is hilarious. They put together literally a video of Nick arguing against Nick, because there was a video Nick did about a Frank's hearing, about how do you do a Frank's hearing, and then it was a video of Nick actually arguing about his issue with the Frank's hearing. So someone put it together, and it essentially explains the whole Frank's hearing issue. So here it is. I'll play it. But it shows you, and it also shows you one other thing too, why it's dangerous for you to play lawyer in your own case, because sometimes you lose that objectivity of understanding, like, what's going on. But this is Rekieta versus Rekieta, Frank's hearing.
What is the difference between the videos? Well, one says backwards internet on it. There's the difference. That's the only difference that matters, because it's different. Objection! So Frank's challenge is just a challenge to any of those statements. It says they're a lie, and says that lie is material. Now, if they make some misrepresentation that has nothing to do with issuing the search warrant, then oh well. Hold it! That's not the question. The question is, why didn't the cop just not lie? So if you're stuck in the analysis of arguing over the quality of evidence, you're way in the wrong part of the trial. Objection! The idea is that alone, like, they lied once, is not enough to overturn a warrant. They have to lie in material ways that are to the issuance of the warrant. And that's what Frank's challenge is for. Hold it! Well, one says backwards internet on it. There's the difference. Objection! But did it, if they change that, if they get rid of that line, does the search warrant still issue? If so, objection! You're not in the right spot. And I'm sorry that practicing lawyers have misled you into the wrong analysis by not being competent at what they talk about. But they have. They have misled you. They have let you down. They have done so to extract money from you.
Is that the Ace Attorney game sound effects?
Yeah, but Nick was right. It had to be material, and it wasn't material.
Yeah.
So it said it just wasn't material. Well, the Nick who was saying that it had to be material was right.
Which Nick won?
Yeah, exactly. he can't appeal as a matter of rights because it's not interlocutory automatically. He can ask for permission, but he won't get it because there's no novel issues here, and the Court of Appeals isn't going to take it up at this time. So the only way to appeal it is to get convicted and then appeal it then, and you'll still lose because the judge was right. So,
and even though we focused on a Frank's issue, there was also a firearms issue. So when the cops did the search, they found the cocaine, and then they found some firearms. But the thing that made the firearms illegal was the cocaine. So they found the cocaine, field tested it, tested positive for cocaine. So then they would seize the firearms under the probable cause that there was illegal drugs, because you can't have illegal drugs and firearms.
So the drugs made the firearms illegal. So if they walked in, there was no drugs, and there was a gun laying on a table, that would be irrelevant. It's just a gun.
Correct. They wouldn't be able to see.
My original prediction was this is going to result in a plea where he does probation only, no jail time. The firearm charge is going to get dismissed, but he's going to have to surrender the firearms, and then he won't have the restriction going forward. That's my prediction. That was my original prediction, and that's what I think is still on the table.
Well, he tried to get the firearm tossed, but the judge, obviously, it came just down to the plain view exception. Exactly what it was like. Well, they were searching for drugs. When you're searching for drugs, you can essentially search anywhere, and they found the guns, and then so so the judge said it was a plain view exception. So the guns do come in, so the gun charge is still live, and then the child endangerment charge is obviously still good because you got drugs, you got guns, you got children. It just wraps it all up. So you get the child endangerment charge. So
can he plea out of a felony? Because that would mean he couldn't vote. He would lose his gun.
He can plea out of the felony and have those dismissed. The child endangerment's probably not going to go away, but it's going to get wrapped up into the same probationary period. And they have the other child protective proceedings and all that. That'll probably be used as sort of an advisory guide with regard to the probation on the criminal thing.
And let's not forget, though, too, they also found other substances there that they seemingly haven't charged them for, like the ketamine, for instance. So, they still have that ace up their sleeve if they really want to.
Is ketamine illegal or not?
Yeah, it's
I don't know. Is it? Okay, I don't know. I'm not a expert.
So no Bruin challenge?
No Bruin challenge.
Surely that one's pending somewhere in some circuit.
What's a Bruin challenge?
So the Bruin is the U.S. Supreme Court case that came down a couple years ago that threw the whole Second Amendment jurisprudence into chaos because they basically said that any restriction on possessing a firearm has to be well grounded in established tradition and history and stuff like that. Basically, an originalist approach to firearm restriction. And so since then, there have been all kinds of challenges raised to various firearm restrictions, waiting periods, age limits, felons in possession, having a no contact order, like any basis for restricting someone's gun ownership has come under challenge. So making a gun illegal because drugs are present, just, it's an obvious Bruin challenge. I just don't know if he's raising it.
Well, it's a Hunter Biden situation too. It doesn't share the same.
Yeah, Hunter Biden, yeah.
Okay, I just didn't know. I thought that kind of ironic, but it seems like they both are charged similar.
Yeah, I like that.
Similar theories.
It's wild because, to see Hunter Biden, who's a Democrat, use the NRA, like that's the NRA's thing. Like, yes, you should, because what caught Hunter Biden is that on the form he filled out, it asked, were you using drugs? And he puts no. And the NRA has said from jump that should be illegal. You should, even if you say yes or no, that should be irrelevant. You can't, they can't on a question remove your right to own a firearm. So that's essentially what Hunter Biden said, which I do think, I'm again, people will call me a gun nut. I'm more on the NRA side with that because I
came too.
That's right. But I think if you have actually cocaine in your home, then I think you're talking about maybe something.
Yeah, but a question on that, Nate, and I don't want to go too far, but it's like, okay, so if you have cocaine in the house, boom, it's automatically a felony, but you could be drunk out of your everlasting mind, cross-eyed, peeing yourself, and carrying the gun around your house, no worries, no problem. It does seem a little odd.
I think the distinction that maybe you're missing here is that you are in possession of a firearm in the commission of a crime.
Of a felony, yeah.
Right? So you're committing a crime or a felony by being in possession of these illegal drugs. That's the issue. So, or any crime that you're committing, if you're in possession of a firearm while you're committing a crime, that's sort of the
I know, but I feel like it's stretching a little bit far because it's obvious that if you're robbing a bank and you have a gun, that very much they compound each other. But a possession charge where you have a gun present at your house, I don't know. I understand that's what they're saying.
It's not aiding the commission of the crime in any way. It's they're
that would be a whole different thing.
Exactly.
If the gun were aiding the commission of the crime, we'd be talking about first degree because that would elevate it. So that'd be a whole nother thing. But I'll tell you what, if it winds up being Hunter Biden who goes to the U.S. Supreme Court and gets us further gun rights, hey, man, I'm here for it.
Hey, Larry Flint got us free speech. It's not usually the nice people that get these good laws in, right?
Didn't he plead out again, or was that a different case?
And wasn't Miranda a complete nightmare scumbag?
Yeah, he wasn't nice. He wasn't a nice guy.
Yeah, it was the charges from Miranda were insane. But we got the Miranda one.
And then he wound up getting shanked in the bar.
Yeah.
I'm just pointing out, but yeah, it seems like
Did he? I don't know the aftermath.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, goodbye. No loss there. All right. Well, anything else on that one? I was waiting for Joe to get here before bringing up the next case, but I think he might have overslept. I don't know. And
I always thought it was pretty cool that like these cases are named after actual people. I just think that's interesting. Like I've actually met Heller. I've actually met him, and I met McDonald before he died. And so it's just interesting that these are actual people. I think that's cool.
What's weird is the row. So, or that was an actual person, but then it's
it was a pseudonym.
Shane Doe name or pseudonym. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, I don't know about Joe, but who wants to go into this? Apparently, Trump may be making headway in his appeal with Letitia James. They're asking what seem to be some decent questions about, how is this such a big deal if nobody lost any money and it's a victimless crime? Maybe I'm misinterpreting what the road they're traveling, but it seems like they're
I think anybody who argues in front of appellate courts would tell you that those judges hammer both sides hard generally. And you really, just reading the questions don't really get you to the tea leaves. But I think they're asking. It's good to hear they're asking the right questions, because I think that's what people are more impressed about. Because the appeals court is all about the law. How does this affect the law? So, in the most, when you do watch appellate cases and the appellate arguments, the judges go hard on both sides. So you would expect something like this. So it wasn't shocking that they were asking those questions, because I think they were obvious questions. I just think you can't overvalue you can't overvalue it for either side. You just don't know.
I think the article is right, though. After watching the hearing, you could kind of see the look on her face. I forget her name. I feel like she felt like she was losing part of the case, and she also tried to make it a little personal with opposing counsel, and I don't think that flew very well with the justices at the appellate court. But I thought the Trump's attorneys were making great arguments. And there was at least one judge that seemed to be very receptive to Trump's arguments. Now, again, you're trying to read the tea leaves, and maybe they're just poking at it to see where the arguments will go, and they're not necessarily in favor of that position. But it seemed to go very well for Trump, in his case. And replace Trump's name with whoever you want, and the arguments don't make sense to me. The charges don't make sense to me at all. That you would have a situation where it's a negotiated arm's length deal where everything was paid back and with interest and no issues, and yet they're trying to hold him accountable because he, misvalued the property. There's a case involved. There's an appellate case. I can't remember the name of it, that the justices were hammering and saying, if this comports with this sort of analysis on fraud, then why are we here? Sort of approach. I can't remember the name of that case, but
it's I think what is the two arguments? One is the victimless crime argument, right?
Yeah,
everybody got paid back. Everybody got there's actually no harm here. Yeah. There's nothing. But then the other side is arguing, it's about the law. There is a clear violation of the law. His apartment was 10,000 feet. He's saying it's 30,000 feet. So there is a violation here, but is that violation tangible enough to where you would expect a $400 million judgment? So I do understand there's got to be some give ground here. And I think Trump's legal team has the better argument because everybody got paid back. Matter of fact, the banks and stuff were happy. They want to do more business with him. They're like, yeah, this is great, So
it also threatens other businesses in New York that won't feel like it's a comfortable place to do business, I would think. There's a public risk factor. You've got Kevin O'Leary, and there's a lot of people who aren't necessarily Trump fans who are saying, this one can't stand. It's going to destroy us.
Well,
and I think the Court of Appeals should be looking into that, because that's one of the things that the Court of Appeals does. They don't necessarily look at the particular case. Like, no Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court should be looking at what can we do with this particular defendant or this particular party in this case. It's what does the law say? What is the reasonable interpretation applying past decisions, and how will that impact situations going forward? And that argument is very strong, the going forward sort of thing. And all appellate courts should be looking at that.
Yeah, you talking about public policy, right? Kevin O'Leary's argument is that, hey, this may affect the business, and he literally said everybody else is doing it. Well, that's not convincing to any judge or anybody who's been, because that's the speeding argument, right? Where the person gets caught speeding. Look at everybody else speeding. Well, I caught you, right? I caught you. You could make the selective prosecution argument, which I think is maybe more convincing, but the whole everybody else is doing it doesn't really work for me. But I do think on the facts of the matter, Trump, there was misrepresentations in those documents. I think that's undeniable. It's just really we're talking about to the extent of the punishment of those misrepresentations, and I think that's where Trump wins, because
the $400 million. I believe they were arguing too, right? The attorney sanctions.
Yeah. I
didn't hear that part of it, so I don't remember what exactly I don't know what the arguments were on the appellate level.
There are also problems, or at least arguments, to be had on the jury arguably didn't reach a unanimous conclusion as to which theory of the case. Now, there are counter arguments to be had, but there's some legal issues there.
In the civil case, it was a default. The judge ruled as a matter of law that they were reliable, and then that's when they had the trial was actually just about the punishment of it, right? Because the judge ruled based on these facts that he's guilty, and then they went to the liability phase, and that's where you had the little trial about how much everything was worth and that type of stuff.
Was there a summary judgment on this, and then the trial was only damages? Is that how this shook out?
I think there was a summary on part of it, but I'm not sure about all of it.
Maybe I might be mistaken. Yeah, because I remember
this is why we need a Joe here. Joe is
all over it.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Joe, where are you?
But I thought I watched the hearing yesterday on Joe's channel, and I thought it was really good arguments by the Trump team, and the fact that I keep forgetting her name. Opposing counsel, the woman, she just seemed so frustrated with the whole process. I was like, that seems like a good sign. That's what I took away from that.
All right. Somebody said, yes, they did the Alex Jones BS. So directed by whatever.
I'm reading it now.
Well, Alex Jones is a little different because he actually defaulted, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
Trump did.
Although I read some of those default decisions, I don't think I read the one that actually happened in Connecticut, but I read some of the other ones in some of his other cases, and he did have a tendency of effing around. So some of that default stuff was a little bit more understandable when it came to Alex Jones.
Yeah, I don't believe there was a default. Like Alex Jones, I believe one of the defaults was because he didn't turn over discovery, and that's one of the sanctionable offenses. If you don't cooperate with discovery, valid discovery, then you lose. Sorry.
But in fairness,
mess around like
wasn't there a problem where they wanted his videos, etc., and the guy had already been banned from YouTube and all that? And it's hard to go recover your videos that were on YouTube when the channel's deleted.
But there was that. There was one in which they interviewed the guy. He said he had the information, had it.
And there he is. There he is. Save us! Yay!
Well.
We're out here just
we were waiting for Letitia James, and I had given up hope.
The question is at the beginning. The question we had was at the trial level at the Aragon case. Aragon
is the king of the humans and
but the jury, Aragon found this was a summary judgment case, right? Or did a jury find him lying?
I got it.
It was summary judgment on liability. That's correct.
All right.
That's one of the issues that came up during the oral arguments yesterday. So I assume you're waiting for me because you saw that I covered oral arguments.
Yes.
So,
And I thought, hey, let Joe shine and get the publicity for his channel.
I need to shine. Everyone knows I need to shine. Speaking of shining, by the way, Sunday I'm actually going to finally be having celebration, basically thanking my 100,000 folks, and I want to invite each and every one of you to Sunday evening starting at 8 o'clock on Sunday. I'm going to be inviting each and every one of you to join me, because really I want to thank you, because you guys have all so many people have helped me build my channel, and I certainly count every one of you amongst that, as well as countless others, and also the people who participated, who are my people who have been watching the show and supporting the show. Every one of us knows that if not for the people who are watching, there's no way we could keep, and their amazing support they give us, we wouldn't continue doing this. So I'm calling it 100,000 thank yous, and that's what the show is going to be. So it's going to be Sunday at 8 o'clock. It's starting at 8 o'clock. It's going to be running for a whole bunch of hours. But so if you can pop in and out, you don't have to obviously be there. No one's going to be there the whole time other than me. But yeah, I'm going to be sending each of you links, and I hope that I'll be able to see each and every one of you guys for sure. So
cool.
That's going to be Sunday evening starting at 8 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, but as far as this was there was liability was found by the judge. There was multiple issues that were brought up yesterday, and I'll tell you right now, just reading the lay of the land, it seems to me very unlikely that this judgment is going to stand. That it's going to be overturned. The appellate court seemed, when he came in there was basically, I was able to there were 5. It's a panel of 5 judges who are deciding this at this level. The first department, everyone should be well aware, is not remotely sympathetic as a general rule to Donald Trump. They're really not. The first department covers New York County, Manhattan, the Bronx, and they're one of the busiest departments one of the busiest appellate courts in the country, because there's so much litigation, obviously, in New York, even though those are the only 2 counties that they cover. And they, as soon as he came out of the gate there was one of the 5 judges was pretty aggressive with John Sauer, who was representing Trump. And, but surprisingly, there was the second judge to weigh in seemed to be saying, so really what you're saying, counselor, is that it's a serious issue with statute of limitations, and weren't these judgments like paid off a really long time ago? And it's like, you don't expect a judge from the first department to basically be saying something like that is exactly almost like repeating verbatim some of the things that Donald Trump himself has said. So I was like, oh, okay, this is a good sign. This is a judge who seems like he's on Trump's side here.
So are you licensed out of the second department? You're out of the second department, right?
I am licensed out of the second department because I came out of Queens.
All right, because if you've ever watched the first department, they slam both sides like that normally. Like I've watched a couple, and they like it's surprising if you don't realize it, because and I kind of feel like you're giving a short shrift, because the first department is they feel that they're the technical, buttoned up. We're the first department because we're Manhattan versus the second department. And so you would expect this from the first department. It's not like you say they're the Democratic shills. They're generally not. They're very, very kind of straight laced in this type of thing.
Yeah. Like I'm admitted to practice law in the state of New York, and I have to respect all the judges as an officer of the court. And I do, as a general practice, have great respect for all the judges in the state of New York. I also I'm in the middle of trying to litigate the case of Good Lawgic versus Merchant to see Trump get ungagged, and that started in the first department.
How's that going?
We just lost this week on the Court of Appeals.
Oh,
and that means we're going to the Supreme Court, which ultimately is what this really was all about. So, in fact, the Court of Appeals refused to hear our case, even though I was under the impression that if it's an issue of constitutional law, that we're able to go into the Court of Appeals as of right, but Court of Appeals disagree with me. So,
U.S. Supreme Court
onto the district.
U.S. Supreme Court. Yeah.
You want me to write your briefing?
Maybe.
You would love it.
Yeah. I certainly wouldn't complain. Yeah. we should talk. We should talk because I got short deadlines on that. But I'll tell you this much. Look, I could be wrong in the way I was reading the room. That's definitely possible. But the different questions that I saw, you break down the arguments that they made. The first argument that he made was this: tolling that basically the loan started like 13 years ago or so. That there was an order from the court which basically said that you cannot that the statute of limitations based on their calculation goes back to one of two different dates, because there was a tolling period there for some of the defendants but not for other defendants. The anything that happened before July of 2014, none of the defendants could be held liable for, and many defendants cannot be held liable for anything that happened before February of 2016. And they said, and based on this, Ivanka Trump has to be out. So she got out of the case and was not part of the case as of that issue, that decision that came in June of 2023, before this thing went to trial. Then after that happened, Judge Engoron issued summary judgment on liability, said we're going to have a whole trial here just on damages. Once that decision came down with respect, and then there for 6 weeks, he's testifying, Don Jr.'s testifying, and everything is enclosed. No one can see anything that's happening here. You can't have no cameras. We're not even going to let attorneys into the room with a phone. We'll let reporters come in here with phones, but not attorneys. Don't get me started on that, because we don't trust our officers of the court to come in here with a phone. I personally made a whole stink about that. The bottom line is, and then they come out with this $450 million judgment, which becomes a $489 million judgment. No one's really sure about that. John Sauer gets up there and he's like, look, what you're, and he's the attorney for Trump in this appeal. If you want to say that you wrote in June of 2023 that he can't be held liable for it, there's a concept called the continuing wrong doctrine. What does that mean? It means he applies for a loan all the way back, let's say, 2011. And now every year he's supposed to be filing documents. They're claiming every year that he was filing documents. That's a fraud. He's doing that every 6 months to a year. I don't know how often he was doing it, but certainly during the life of the loan, he kept filing documents, and they claim every time he filed, that's a continuation of his wrong. Why are they calling it a continuation of his wrong? Because if I just send you, Eric, I send you fraudulent documents, I can't get held liable for that. That's not a crime. It's got to be part of me trying to deceive you to get something. Trump made a claim. You can see he's like, look, if I send documents and I already have the money, I'm not deceiving you and committing fraud anymore. So the continuing stuff that I was doing, I can't. Where am I committing fraud? All the other stuff goes back to 2011. And they said, well, there's a concept of a continuing wrong. So when you sent that stuff in 2017, sent those documents in 2018, that's continuing the wrong going back to 2011. What does that mean, though? And this is what John Sauer was arguing yesterday. Because what that means is, so now these documents I'm sending in 2017 that I would not be liable for, I'm liable for these documents that I'm sending in 2017. But that same order from June 2023 said that doesn't mean I'm also liable for what happened in 2011. It doesn't extend the statute of limitations back. So, and when Judge Engoron was attributing how much damages there's supposed to be, he's like, well, I'm giving you $480 million. There's a wrong in 2011. There's a wrong in 2012. There's a wrong in 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17. He's like, he got crippling financial punishment for stuff that he did well before the statute, well beyond the statute of limitations. And that's part of this whole calculation here. So the second judge to pop up there, he's like, okay. He's like, but if we accept all that, isn't it true that there would be some sort of judgment that he would still have some liability here? And then that judge goes, unless we were to look at your next argument. So this second judge now was weighing in and supporting Trump, which, his second argument was that he wasn't, there was this claim of summary judgment that was issued against him. That was an order of summary judgment issued against him when there was still, when there were still issues of fact.
Probably.
And there were 2 other judges who popped. There was a total of 3 judges who popped on board who seemed to be sitting there saying, like, that they had real questions with there being issues out of fact. There were 3 out of 5 judges there, which seemed wholly sympathetic to Trump during this appeal. And I'll tell you right now, I think he's got a great shot of this thing being overturned, if not completely, certainly being measured down and scaled back considerably. So.
Yeah, but every summary judgment, the judges, especially appeals courts, are usually a little more skeptical about the summary judgment because, again, you're taking it out of the hands of the juror, and you've essentially said no reasonable juror would come to an opposite conclusion. So,
anyway, I came in here and just started talking for the last 15 minutes, but that's my breakdown there. So
what do you think its chances are? You think its chances are high that they're going to do something?
The phrase that Branca has said often, and is a very insightful phrase for a number of reasons, is appeals are for losers. And if you think about it, the only time you're ever appealing is because you lost. But it also is true because you tend to rarely win. But I think he's at least 50-50 on this one. They seemed really sympathetic to him. Well, who knows what's going to happen?
Now, we were also talking Letitia James. She was getting crushed by some of those questions.
The face that the state's attorney was making at the end, she looked like she died. I mean, she looked miserable at the end of the whole thing. Like she was like sitting there, like just like downcast when everything was all over there. I'm telling you, look, they could be giving a false face, the judges, to try and like put up a good front. You could be, and that's definitely true of what Nate was saying there. That's definitely true. They seem to have serious issues. There was one of the judges was like, trying to basically make the case though that under this statute, the point of the statute is not whether there was actually a harm, because this was a big thing that no one got harmed. And she's like, but under this statute, it's not about harm. But the thing is, that's not what the appeal was about. And one of the judges even said, "Counselor, your claim here is not really that Letitia James would not in general have a right to go after this, but that in this particular case, the way it was applied is the problem." Which of those 2 arguments are? And as soon as he said that, John Sauer was like, "Exactly, Your Honor." We're not saying that she doesn't have any. You can question whether she has any right here, but certainly in this circumstance, when you consider that it was summary judgment and the nature of how it was applied with respect to the statute of limitations, that it doesn't make any sense. And one of the things that came up when they were asking the state this question was, they said, the way you're reading New York executive law, it seems like it's really giving the Attorney General huge discretion to go into big areas. What area would they not be? Would the Attorney General not be able to go in and investigate? At what point do we say it's too far? In fact, one of the first question she got out of the gate, 3 seconds into her speaking, was one of the judges going, "So, can you tell us a single case where you had 2 different parties who are both as sophisticated as imaginable, neither of them has any sort of financial harm, the case was the loan is 14 years old," and he's going on, basically yelling like at her the way Trump would, and he's like, at what point have we gone too far and said, you know what, this is really beyond the scope of what the Attorney General should be meddling in? I mean, and so that was what one judge was saying, but then you had a different judge who was saying, look, the point here is not about whether or not there was a harm. It's that we want to keep judgment, we want to keep businessmen honest, and that's what the Attorney General is doing in order to help New York be a healthy place to do business, which is such a shocking, ridiculous perspective when you consider Mr. Wonderful, after he heard about this judgment, said Letitia James just killed business in the state of New York because you're an idiot if you come in here and try doing business, because you know that Letitia James, if she doesn't like you, she's going to take your business away from you. So what this whole case has basically destroyed the city of New York as a place that any sane businessman would walk into voluntarily and do business. And now the court is like, oh, she's allowed to do this in order to promote people to come here to engage in business. It's got the exact opposite effect. So Anyway,
Well, I don't know if I could put too much stock in Mr. Wonderful, especially with his ties to FTX and all that stuff. So, but he can say whatever he wants, but it is what it is. But I do think
then he's an expert in sketchy business.
Yeah,
nice.
You guys got to watch his CNBC interview. They tore his behind up with FTX because he was trying to say, "Oh, I lost $15 million," and they're like, "But hold on,
didn't Cuban as well?" I thought Cuban was tied into that too.
Money, but Mr. Wonderful, he lost 15 million, which is true. But then they were like, "Well, how much did they pay you to be the spokesman for FTX?" It happened to be 15 million. So hold on. So you lost the money they paid you. He was like, "Well, you see, I lost the 50." They're like, "You're a scam artist. What are you talking about? You lost the money. You didn't lose a dime."
Do you guys remember the whole legal issue that people had, whether if that's considered security, that there's considered, if anyone who's promoting, like Tom Brady made commercials, that there was questions whether they could be held liable, for what they did there, because you can't, there's no defense in that circumstance if you didn't know about the fraud. That if you support a security and you promote a security, in that case, as I understand it, I don't know securities law from anything, but what I read was that if you promote securities, that there's a strict liability whether or not you know of the fraud that's going on there, that you're held liable for fraud, and you don't have to have mens rea, you don't have to have anything.
Wow. Did you hear that Mark Cuban said he wants to be head of the SEC when under Kamala?
Well, that would explain why he believes in her.
Yeah, I believe in her.
Wow.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, well, guess we're running out of time here. Kurt, what do we have coming up with you?
So hypothetically, this afternoon, I think Sarah Boone's supposed to have a hearing. So if that happens, I'll be trying to cover it live.
How many lawyers is she up to now?
I believe she's on lawyer number 9, and lawyer number 9 has been augmented, not supplemented or replaced by lawyers 10 and 11. Because I believe she's got a couple different lawyers going for her. To the surprise of the judge, she is now apparently going to be trying to argue self-defense, which is one hell of a theory, right? The argument up to this point would be accident, right? It's like, I didn't know that, he was, facing death and
not intentional.
Not intentional, right? Accident, right? But apparently she wants to offer battered spouse, and the judge is like, well, you can't do that unless it's intentional. It's like, that's what we're arguing, self-defense. Like, really, you stuffed him into a suitcase because you were fearful for your life because of battered spouse syndrome. So
the judge
could
seemed fit in a suitcase, by the way.
No. Here's the thing. So they were playing the game. They were playing their little hide and seek, and he got in voluntarily, but she intentionally did not let him out because she was scared that he was going to beat her.
Yeah. So the judge seemed a bit incredulous by this, and based on the judge's reaction, seemed like he might be considering the possibility of denying this new and exciting defense. So there's supposed to be a motions hearing, I think, partially to discuss that issue, because this trial's supposed to start in like 2 weeks.
You know what's going to happen is
it's all kinds of fun.
The prosecutor is going to amend their pleadings to say, we're going to add a count of first degree now. That's what's going to happen. And that's going to be very bad for her.
Yeah, so that's exciting. So I'm looking forward to seeing if there's going to be a hearing today. It was supposed to be yesterday, but it got canceled because some sort of minor weather event in Florida. So they rescheduled it and hopefully cover that. And then we've got some edited videos to be released at some point. I've got one dealing with, as I check my own queue, one dealing with Babbitt as her. Ashley Babbitt, who was shot during the Capitol riot, her lawsuit against the Capitol Police has made it past the motion to dismiss. So her cases are being allowed to go forward on seeking wrongful death. So I have a video coming out on that at some point in the future. So you can check that stuff out on civil law.
Awesome, Andrea.
I am gearing up for the Richard Allen trial. That's about to start October 14th, and I'm going to be in Indiana for that because that one is not going to be televised. So That's going to be a bunch of long days of sitting in the courtroom and then getting on stream to basically recap what's happening and kind of keep folks in the loop, since the information feed on that one isn't going to be maybe as reliable as the ones that we get to watch for ourselves. So that's really my main focus right now. It's going to be a big undertaking, a big project. In the meantime, I am still putting out some stuff on my Substack. Feel free to check that out. I got a follow-up piece on Karen Reed getting sued by Paul O'Keefe. And some of the implications of that that I'm just about ready to put out. Got all kinds of other things, little bits and pieces in the works. I've been looking at the decertification order for William Farwell, one of the police officers involved in the Sandra Birchmore case, just kind of collateral to Karen Reed for folks that are following that one. And Marilyn Manson filed his appeal brief. Got to take a look at that and get some analysis out on that one. So yeah, all kinds of things going on in the short term. I'd say focus on my Substack. Once we turn to Richard Allen, I'll be firing back up on YouTube.
Fantastic. Joe.
Yeah, well, I've got on Sunday evening, I plan on hosting that 100,000 thank yous that I plan on giving and bringing in everyone hopefully from this panel, as well as countless others. That's going to be Sunday starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, and it's going to be running for several hours. I expect to have folks popping in and out. And yeah, I want to thank, the first person I want to thank before I even get started is I want to thank Eric, which you guys should all be subscribing to, because this guy found me 3 years ago, and I had like 4,000 subs, and he brought me in here and helped gain, give me tremendous exposure. Most people who are watching now, probably many who've been watching him for years, wisely so, likely may not remember that he's the first place you ever saw me. So
I thought you were on with Nick before me. I mean, in fairness.
Yeah,
Nick.
Okay, that's true. With Nick, yeah, his audience is not exactly the same as yours.
True.
You saw me on Nick. What I'm saying is, you brought me in here. He introduced me to Viva Fry at a point in time when, Viva Fry had been my inspiration for actually starting. One of two people who were really my inspiration for starting a channel, and so it was like sort of like I had like a little bit of a feeling of being overwhelmed. I was like, holy hell, I'm on a freaking show with Viva Fry. He introduced me to Nate, and like so many different people that I met through him. So I want to express to you, Eric, like my sincerest thank you for helping get my show off the ground. I mean, yeah, obviously Nick Rekieta was a great factor there too. But each of you, and he introduced me to Uncivil. So each of you and have really contributed in enabling my show to grow, and I think it's a really good and important time for me all to express my gratitude to all of you as well as the fans. So that's gonna be Sunday evening at 8 Eastern, and probably going to like midnight or so. But you guys make sure you sub up to this guy right here. He's awesome. So,
well, thank you, Dave. What do you have coming up?
The only thing I have coming up, so this is like my week to stream. So I had a couple of streams this week, and I had one more scheduled, but I don't have the documents. I moved it to Monday, and it's the Colin Gray case. That's the father of the Georgia school shooter. And I was going to do a compare and contrast between his indictment and James and Jennifer Crumley, who I covered extensively at the time of their trial and throughout. But I don't have the documents yet. Everyone's telling me to go to somebody else. Like the clerk is telling me to go to the prosecutor. The prosecutor's telling me to go to the sheriff. The sheriff's telling me to go to the prosecutor. So I'm trying to find the documents I want, the indictments, the sworn affidavits, and all this stuff to see exactly what their theory of the case is and how the father's liable, so that way I can present something actually useful to you all. So I'll keep probably pushing that back until I actually get the documents. But right now it's set for Monday. I'm hoping to have that. So that's all I got coming up next.
Nate.
Well, I have a judge who's right now indicted on 2 drive-by shootings, one in Oklahoma. He's a sitting judge, one in Oklahoma, one in Texas, and he was just found to have dementia, so he's trying to get out of those 2 life sentences. I also have another judge who Also, Gavin Newsom has vetoed the reparations bill in California. I thought that was interesting because, he goes real hardcore with the leftist thing, but now he literally vetoed the reparations because he said it's going to be too expensive. And people are saying that now he's essentially Trump 2.0, which is insane stuff. You're laughing at that. We also have the Migrant King, which is another crazy story because this is the guy who was going around saying, hey, we could just go into empty homes and
Lionel,
that dude. And he was on camera with all the guns and everything. So the Biden administration eventually caught him and said, we're going to deport him. But come to find out, Venezuela's not taking back people who they deport. So he's now kind of in limbo where he's still here and he can't be deported, but he has a deportation order. So we're going to go over that craziness. And then obviously
there's room at Camp X-Ray in Guantanamo Bay.
But he hasn't done anything so bad though. Like, what did he do? He's just, flossing how Americans are. He calls them stupid.
Oh, well, we'll house him. He's getting free housing there.
And the last is obviously, I got Ron Coleman coming on in about 20 minutes, and we're going to go over the judge in Texas who has now been arrested for committing fake racist hate crimes against himself, pretending to be Trump supporters. So that's the last one.
Wow.
I do want to say, actually, I didn't really talk about my Lego streams. I do have another channel, Lego Law, Life and Libations. I got a stream coming up on the 5th with Feral Housewife. And then on October 19th, Ron Coleman's coming on to build some Lego with us. So
nice.
Lots of Ron here. I hear Ron twice now. All right. Okay, well, I got to take
the
this
Lego
opportunity.
stream is a blast. I got to go on it. I still have my Himeji castle out on display. It's very good times.
Cool. Well, I got to pimp my new channel, which I've been doing. It's 6 weeks old today, officially, and doing really well. If you guys like conspiracies, I'm really excited and enjoying this particular channel. Most recent video that came out was Venona Project. Before that was Operation X, which went through the history of the CIA and drug peddling in order to fund operations. Tomorrow will be remote viewing. What is remote viewing, you ask? Have you heard of a movie called The Men Who Stared at Goats? Have you heard of a guy who likes to bend spoons with his mind? Yes, Uri Geller, in fact, was trained by the CIA or was studied by the CIA, and they found him to be legitimate. James Randi, on the other hand, very famous debunker magician, not so much. That's going to be all part of tomorrow's episode. And then on Monday, because I don't only do government conspiracies, I also do industry. So the sugar industry hired people to lie. They funded studies that are affecting us to this day with the obesity, something that I suffer. So all of these things I think are really good. I hope you consider checking it out if you like any kind of proven conspiracies throughout time. It's doing really, really well. We're up to 28 videos now. So,
very cool.
Awesome.
Good. Go strong. 9,000. It's pretty quick. 6 weeks.
Yes.
I'm simply you're talking into the void because you're muted.
All right, Randy was a boss man. I think it was Carson. Went on to Carson when Geller was a guest.
That's part of it. Yes.
Yeah, I have the power to move telephone pages with my mind. Like, okay. And so all he does is he sprinkles styrofoam popcorn around. It's like, okay, move it without your mind. And he couldn't do it because styrofoam. So, like, or he's like, okay, I have the power to determine which of these things has the thing in it. Like, my props, I put them together. You tell me which one has the like water in it or whatever. He can't do it because he has no idea. So yeah, Randy was the man.
Oh yeah, James Randi's awesome. I think he had $1 million bounty for anyone who could pull him. He very much is influenced by Harry Houdini. Yeah, Harry Houdini went around debunking because he lost his mother. He felt terrible. Got with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And Doyle was very, very big in the medium community. So he brought Harry with him. Harry was depressed. And he was like, okay, well, we have your mother here. And it turns out his mother's a Jew. So the guy's, saying all this Christian stuff. And Harry Houdini's like, my mother's Jewish. This is a complete lie. And he dedicated his life to debunking people. James Randi started as a magician doing escape artistry, things like that, like Harry Houdini, and carried on with the debunking side after he stopped doing the street magic and whatever else.
But before you go, let me play the clip of James Randi doing the meeting. It's a 1 minute clip, but it's hilarious. Check this out. This is James Randi debunking the media.
Play it. It's got to be on the screen.
Boom!
R.I.P. man. James Randi was a great. That's for sure.
Or like, and they just do like silly things to show like people's assumptions. Like he'd go on stage at a lecture with glasses, but they'd have no lenses in them, just because like people would assume that he's reading with them. Or he'd talk into the microphone on the podium, but it wasn't active. The microphone he was using was on his lapel, just to show how assumptions are made, and how you can deceive people with just simple assumptions. He's an interesting guy.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well,
there's a good documentary done about him. You should watch it.
Honest
Liar. Honest Liar or something like that. Yeah, it was
Honest
really
Liar.
Yeah, it was good.
All right, well, and before I close, if you like this kind of show with these amazing people, subscribe below while you're here, or follow if you're on Rumble, or follow if you're on X, or wherever you might want to be. Do it every Friday, almost. We have a couple exceptions, but we try to make this work every Friday with amazing people, and we should see you next week.